My name is Steven. As always, I'm your host of the ACC Podcast from ACC Ventures. Really excited for today's episode. I am sitting here with Humayun Sheikh, and he has some answers to questions that I'm sure a lot of people have about the future of artificial intelligence, decentralized applications, and the future of Web3 altogether. So these are truly not just buzzwords. In fact, I believe that overlooking some of these signal words could make or break the future of mankind itself. So, Humayun, thank you so much for being on the show today. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Stephen, pleasure to be here, and really chuffed that you invited me to ask all the questions that we've been talking about, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and introduce you myself so you don't have to go through it for the millionth time. Humayun is the CEO and founder at Fetch.ai, as well as the chairman of the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. So there is a list of questions that I could get into, but right away, I want to open the topic. A pretty big moment for Fetch is the recent raising of around $500 million to acquire FET tokens as a part of Interactive Strength. This is some news that came out recently. So could you touch on this? It sounds like a major move. One of the first times we're seeing a public company go this big on AI native crypto assets. So could you speak to anything about that? How long that took to put together?
So I think there's some misconception here. Fetch is not raising the money. Just to be clear,
Perfect.
the public company, which is the Interactive Strength, is the company which is raising which has raised some of the funds, but they have a commitment to raise another up to 500 million. That's not happening right now, but it's their funding. It's the whole thing belongs to them. Fetch has no financial outcome from it. Fetch does not have any financial reward from it, apart from the fact that Fetch is providing the technology which they will be using in various ways, and we can dig into it. And all of that requires FET token. So our tech stack, which is not just the Fetch tech stack, it's the whole ASI tech stack, requires FET token to operate. And the companies, and this is not the first one. I mean, there has been in the past a very small transaction which has happened with a freight company. I think if people who follow us would know this, and we're working with them again for a technology transfer in effectively bringing. It's kind of a mix, and this is kind of quite unique. We kind of looked at some of the university programs where you know there is a technology transfer program between industry and a university, for example. So university develops the technology and they hand it over to industries to actually deploy it in their own vertical. So that it's kind of very similar to that. So if you think about it, what we're doing is we're taking the technology which Fetch has developed, which is the agentic systems, which is the LLM, which is all the integration with each other to actually execute agentic based orchestration system. You're actually providing that technology to these listed companies. Now, why are we doing this? The reason why we're doing this is because these companies do not have the capability to go out and hire AI people. And every business knows if they do not participate in this race, they are going to lose out, right? So they have to do something. And so that's one very important part. And we are actually the only tech stack which is so comprehensive that if you look at it, we have the agents, we have the large language model, we have other specialist models. We've been showcasing it for the last 6 months, and everything we've been publishing in the markets. You can see that it's a very comprehensive tech stack. So we have the models, we then have the data tools, we then have the compute itself, which is distributed. So as a whole tech stack, it makes sense for a listed company, not necessarily just a listed company. It's only made more noise because it's a listed company and it's raised a lot of money from capital markets. But I mean, we have done these kind of similar arrangements with non-listed companies and industry. So we've been announcing it, and we've seen huge amounts of partnerships in the last 2 months, 3 months, and it's growing. So all of that is happening. The reason why it caught everybody's attention is because what they're doing is, there is no company in, if you look at Nasdaq, for example, you don't get AI exposure very easily, because by the time these AI companies with large language models, they come to the market, they're already valued at like 30 billion or something,
Mhm.
which is overpriced. Look at the value of Fetch. It's, that the whole thing is like 2 billion or 2.5 billion, right? Depends on the day, because
Right.
crypto does what crypto does. Um, so what you're getting is, like, I mean, if you add the value of the whole tech stack in, which is available in ASI or Fetch, I mean, we're looking at tens of billions value. So it's not, but crypto is a market of its own accord. It has its own, um, you know meme coin kind of valuations. We don't have that, which is unfortunate. But what we felt with this kind of partnership was that capital markets can also participate somehow in a very low cap way into this whole AI game. And why we're unique is that it's not just a treasury strategy. It's not just that, because you could take any token and put it in the treasury and call it, the exposure, which is fine, but not really fine, because it's not really truly a technology company that you're getting an exposure to. But that's something which Fetch is not participating. Fetch is participating in the technology transfer.
Of course. Well, that's
Yes.
great.
So hopefully give you a full kind of overview of what this is about.
I love that. I think if there's one way to begin an episode, it's with giving you the opportunity to clarify these misconceptions. But at the end of the day, I do believe that that is a huge signal. And that even touched on something that I mentioned at the very beginning on the introduction of the idea of signal words. And this series that ACC Ventures is putting out, we're calling it Founders Stories. And I really want to hear from all founders that I talk with, including yourself, especially somebody who has been in the world of artificial intelligence, large language models for years and years, many years before ChatGPT and OpenAI really became, exploded. Um, just over the past couple years here. So just kind of shooting from the hip, you mentioned something about how inclusion is so important, about creating a system which is not controlled by single entities. And with that being said, given that this is founder stories, I just wanted to jump in right away and ask you about the merger. I know that rebrandings and mergings of lots of different ideas can be very complicated, especially bringing in the meme centric, as we mentioned, idea of crypto cultures and communities. And people don't like change. Humans don't generally like change. So this is founder stories. I want to get right into it. How's this merger been? How's the community received it? And what have been the biggest challenges for you, Humayun?
Well, I mean, I kind of started with this whole concept, and let me take you through the story, because I think that's what you kind of
Perfect. Yeah.
want to hear. Um, it so in my past, obviously the DeepMind, because I was part of
Hmm.
DeepMind early on, right from the beginning. I was an investor in it. I also was part of when it exited to Google, and the reasons why we exited to Google, which was really to do with money for compute, and we could see that was a problem. The company was a lot more value. It was a lot more valuable within the following 12 months when we sold it.
Hmm.
And the reason why we had to kind of sell. I mean, hindsight is great, but you have to do what you have to do. Is because the tech stack was very limited. All the surrounding ecosystem was quite limited, because you're building this technology. Nobody kind of even understands it. This is like 2008, 2009. Although AI has been around, God knows how long, but with the compute coming online, becoming cheaper and cheaper, you could do all these things. And when we did the whole chess thing, and So that's quite limiting. The ecosystem doesn't is the surrounding ecosystem is not there, and it became very clear to me that we have to do two or three things which are quite important. One, we need to find a way to commercialize this AI, right?
Mhm.
And that kind of pushed me towards the agentic systems, which became the application layer. Then, secondly, you have to have a lot of compute, because to do something to train models which are going to be useful, you need compute. So that was also very, very interesting. And the last thing is the ecosystem. Do we have enough people using the product? Because if you can't launch a product for people to use and there are no people to use it, then you're going to struggle to actually commercialize it, which means your valuation is never going to be great, right? But these three things are they're quite difficult things. Each one of them is quite difficult to acquire, compute, and do all of that. And when we started, my objective started from the application layer, which is the agentic systems, because I felt that's the missing piece. Everybody's building more focused on AI, but how do you use AI? How do you deploy AI? Is a missing piece. So I went to build that whole infrastructure on how to build agents, how to find agents, how to connect agents, how to deploy agents, how to actually uh, orchestrate a actual task using agents. So that was our focus. But we quickly realized that if we just focused on that, then we are very isolated. We don't have enough ecosystem. We don't have enough the rest of the components of the tech stack. And we're not a company. We're not a centralized entity, which is just going to raise more money and do something, right? So that's kind of pushed me towards the merger, where we looked at the three OGs of AI, which was Singularity, ourselves, Ocean.
Right.
And what that provided us was the three components which were missing. One, I mean, we provide the agentic system. Singularity provided the research and the AI research, which is always needed to improve the agentic system and build the large language models and all the other specialist models, and they have that skill set. Ben is great, visionary, so he can actually think of these new ways of doing building models and techniques and all that. So they had that kind of, but they didn't have a product, they didn't have the commercialization strategy. And then you have the data, because without data you don't have the ability to train these models, because data becomes quite important. So we kind of merged it. And also in crypto, if you look at it logically, not meme psychology wise,
Mhm.
you have three companies with, or three projects with three tokens with three different things, and you now have to go and integrate one chain with the other chain with the other thing, and it's not receptive to deployment. If you are going to ask people to use a technology, you can't just keep saying it's decentralized
Right.
and not giving them the right thing to use. You can't just say, oh, well, use our LLM because we're decentralized. No, use our LLM because it's good. Use our LLM because it has better features or unique features, which you can't find elsewhere. That's the way to say it. And that's the way people will use it. Because otherwise, just saying it's decentralized doesn't mean anything, right? It is decentralized, and that is our core principle. But let's just not, shove it down everybody's throat.
Mhm.
So we are decentralized. We want to be decentralized, but we have to provide the right application. We have to provide the right features. So putting them all together made sense to do it. And then we were missing the compute part, which I said is quite important. So we went and we merged with Cudos, who has at the moment, I would say, probably the biggest GPU hour spend, or kind of on out of all the decentralized platforms. So we kind of merged that in a very coherent kind of way, and the tech stack became quite substantial. So if you now look at our tech stack, there is nobody in the industry, Web 2, Web 3, who has this whole tech stack.
Mhm.
Now, again, coming back to the crypto mindset, which is, oh, well, it's dilution. Well, how is it dilution? If you add these projects, it's actually multiplication. It's not even addition, because who has it? And not just that, but you now have 3 or 4 projects with their ecosystems coming together as one. So now you have the ability to deploy as well. So you have to build the technology, build the product, launch it, and you can deploy it to all this ecosystem, which is like 4x a single project.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thinking, the premise behind this merger.
Yeah, I'm sure the marketing team has much more insight or thoughts to all of this, especially bringing in three different teams, probably. But I think that at the end of the day, the biggest conversation that we can have between you and me here is much more centered and focused around some of these things you've mentioned about agentic economies and AI autonomy. But before we get into that, during my research and I've seen it over the time that I've been in crypto here and there, but I want to hear from you. Compute is the number one. Obviously, we need the data to train these models, but what is compute? Like, is that just like raw power? Like, is that, you mentioned GPU. So I just want to briefly touch on why that's so important. And you mentioned your partnership with Cudos there. So, what is compute?
Well, compute is the ability to train models, run models. So it's like CPU, right? But
Gotcha.
it's not it's more specialist, right? So what is it? I mean, it's so to run any of these models, to train any of these models, you need a very specialist piece of equipment which can actually, I mean, it came out from the graphics processing unit, but it's now become part of AI everyday life. And now you can train it with NVIDIA. It became one of the most valuable companies in the world because you need to train these models and you need to have the compute. And we were having, as I was saying, when we exited DeepMind, one of the things we were having problem with was compute. But NVIDIA has kind of made it not just the hardware but the software so much better that you can actually train these models. So to train these models, you need to run them somewhere, and that's the machinery which you run it on. And then you have so there are two components. One is the training, and the other one is the serving of the inference, right? So let's say you're going to train a model which is going to give you an answer, but then you have to, once you've trained it, then you have to make it smaller so that you can actually deploy it, so people can actually ask it and it can respond to it quickly. So those are the two big components. And what, as a decentralized entity, or not being able to compete with these centralized huge hyperscalers, you need the ability to access those GPUs somehow. And by bringing it decentralized, what it means is anybody can deploy it anywhere and then actually connect to this network. So it's more like it's like an online uh, layer on top of all the actual physical hardware, which enables you to access the hardware anywhere in the world, but anybody can actually go and plug it in. So that's what Kudos brings to the table. So when we train our LLM, we train it on a decentralized, GPU system. We run it on decentralized GPUs, which are provided by this Kudos layer, which runs on top of the hardware.
Got
So that's kind of where the compute fits in.
Thank you for explaining that. The idea of compute, it's makes sense, I'm computing what compute is. And I tell you what, every time I feel like I see a video of a keynote from the NVIDIA CEO, I just continue to get more just awestruck with how this technology is advancing. And I think that, interestingly brings me to an interesting kind of abstraction between maybe some of the things that are keeping a more popular audience from using cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies, where, like I just said, I see a keynote from the NVIDIA CEO, and he's got this big spine and he's explaining it's all made of copper and how it, what its capabilities are. And I think that's easy for every human to see a tangible thing and to understand and put words to it. But I think for me, one of the biggest challenges that we'll just generically say the world of Web3 is facing today is just how these words have immense implications that speak to so many concepts that have such great depth to them. And I will say that, again, in my research, I think that what really stood out to me about what you seem to believe and what you seem to be pushing forward with Fetch is just this whole idea of the agentic systems becoming the application layers. And I think that that is completely evident in how we saw so many people just explode on a chat GPT and start using that like crazy. And at the end of the day, the agentic economies are really going to be just kind of what's the word? Just interacting. They're going to be creating new economies just like crazy. And obviously,
Uh,
you go ahead.
I, I, I think just to interject here,
Go ahead.
it's actually not a big step if you really stand back and think about it. So forget about all this AI for a second, right?
Mhm.
Let's just look at what Web 2 is and where it started from, right? So where it started from was very simple. I can send you something, you can send me something, right?
Mhm.
I can exchange some data, you can exchange some data. Then it became, from there we started to have the internet of websites. So you have now, everybody has a representation on a web page. So what came with that was user interface. What came with that was people relied on these websites to share information with people, so that you could tell somebody, hey, if you want to know more about me, or you want to do something with me, go and see my website.
Mhm.
Then and then the next evolution in that stage was, okay, now we have gazillions of websites. How do I actually find them? Right?
Right.
Along came Google, the birth of Yahoo and Google. Yahoo went for just a simple listing of agents, which, like a market agents, I say, websites. It's like, call it a marketplace of websites. And then Google took the next step, which was, no, no, we need to be a lot more clever about this. We need to look at what people want and then connect them with what is relevant, rather than just going for. So that's the evolution. Then we from where we there we went to this huge scale of e-commerce, which suddenly kicked in. Right now we have all these transactions happening on this web infrastructure using websites. And then following on from that, because even the websites, all these websites couldn't, I mean, it's like, you wanted to look for travel, how many websites a human can look through to get to the right answer. Then came the aggregators for different verticals, right? So that's the progression of what happened. So now let's run it as AI first. So what is a website? Website is something which people who want to interact with you, you have given them to interact with as an information source, right? So now if you replace that with a agent, which is intelligent, does the same job, provides information, but actually is interactive. It's more intelligent than a website. So now just replace all the websites with agents, right? So now you're starting to see how this is going to evolve. It's a very parallel understanding of it. So before, if I want to go and know what you do, I would go to your website. I'll go through it. First, I'll find you, then I'll go through it. I'm simplifying it, right? You'll go LinkedIn or social media, but let's say before that it was websites. I would go to your website. I'll look through it. I'll see what you do. I'll find out what is relevant to me. I am doing the work. And then I will say, okay, well, I want to connect with this guy. How do I do that? Oh, here's the email address. Here's the phone number. So then I call you and then I connect with you and I say, hey, I want to meet you. Let's set up a meeting. Let's arrange, let's arrange a lunch or dinner or whatever. And then you have that whole process going. Like, now I'm going to go to the restaurant and look for the the website which is good, which works for all. We check with calendars to and fro. You have the messaging going on. Now compress that into one thing. So the website becomes your agent, which is interactive. So I can say, hey, what do you do? I mean, what is your skill set, for example? And then they can speak to the agents, can speak to each other and say, yes, there's a match. I would love to meet you or speak to you. Could you arrange it? And then you say, okay, in my diary, you go in the check in the diary, and you've left it open. You said, yes, I want to know from people. I want to hear from people. You go in and you set a calendar appointment on both sides. Now, this is without you guys ever getting involved. You and I are not doing any of this. Our agents are doing this because they found each other. they've arranged a call, they've booked it in the calendars, which is all the things we would be doing, which is a wasted time. I call it a dead time, because you're not doing anything useful.
Hmm.
You're actually just solving these worldly problems which exist because it's so disparate. But the agents are doing that, so you don't need to do any of that. And then suddenly it kind of starts bringing information, knowledge, data, actually merges it with the what the requirements are and sets the requirements. And you can say to it, hey, I don't want to see these kind of people. I want to see different kind of people, and can vet that out. And it can do all of those things. So websites being replaced with agents with AI underneath it, because it's AI first, and that generation of learning, which your agent kind of gets. Sometimes it'll get it right, sometimes it'll get it wrong. It then leads and opens up this whole e-commerce ecosystem after that. So, for example, let's say you're looking for a coder. You find a coder. You know what their skill set looks like. You already know because you've already given that instruction to the agent. It goes and finds 10 of them, connects you. You interview them. Uh, you hire them. You do the transactions. All of that becomes very, very self. It becomes autonomous effectively
Right.
based on your intent or your instruction. So that's where we're going. It's not that different. It's just an evolution of what Web 2 was.
Yeah. And I want to top on something that you mentioned there because I think that really, whether you're talking about Web 2 and accessing a regular website, spending your own time to kind of research and connect all of these dots, I think there's kind of two almost categories that kind of fit in here where time is a valuable resource. But it's as if, artificial intelligence, AI agents are coming along and they're shrinking the amount of time that a human will spend putting their energy into something. And I think that has implications to the compute. So the compute is increasing perhaps, but the time is decreasing. And so kind of my question, and it's almost a concern, just a curiosity here from you, is I see a bit of a problem where AI systems are overworking. They're over consuming compute. And maybe this is, yeah, I know you mentioned that AI should be used towards research and so forth. But for everyday users, I ask a simple question, what is the weather? And instead of just a simple answer, it's like, here's the weather. And then here's a whole essay on all of these other things that I didn't even ask for. And my question to you, I just want to hear your response, your feedback to just how do we properly train these AI models because they've got the data, but they have too much data and they're giving us too much of what we're looking for. So how do you I mean, it's just like there's so many assumptions that have to be made by these models. And then whenever we start talking about models talking to models and creating new agents, just how do we make sure that compute isn't being wasted because it's replacing time. Time is the most valuable resource humans have. Compute is one of those top things that AI requires. So shouldn't it be of utmost importance for the compute to really be, honed in, ensuring that, hey, I asked a question to this AI model and it's not giving me one little bit more info than I really need, that I'm really accessing this AI agent or system to kind of get answers to.
Yeah, that's a great question, but that's okay. I mean, we're capable of doing that right now. That's
Right.
why the agent is the interface layer. So when you ask a question, agent learns what you asked and how to respond.
Hmm.
Day one, it might not, but you can tell it. You can say, hey, I don't want detailed answers. Next time, only give me factual answers within one sentence,
Hmm.
and it will learn from it and it will just obey it. So, for example, when we launched our ASI 1,
Hmm.
which is our LLM,
Right.
uh, I mean, there are two different things. I mean, there is agents and there's agents, and that everybody uses agents in their different way. We can get into that, but we have multiple models. So we have ASI Mini, we have ASI Fast, we have ASI Extended, and we have ASI Graphic or Graph kind of model. So when you go to and your agent can choose which one to use, right? So you can say, give me the give me the weather, and your agent knows that you like specifics and short answer, it'll go to ASI fast, or it will use its own model to just give you web search it, or whatever is the most economical and efficient way of doing it. But ASI fast will not give you reasoning. It will keep it very short. It will just pick it up and it'll just spit it out. And if you ask ASI one extended, it will actually do a PhD on just giving you the weather. I mean, it will start thinking, it will start. So you do need that for some cases. If you want to do some research, you're not going to just say, "Hey, just give me one line answer." You'll say, "Hey, I don't know the answer to this. Go and have different viewpoints and argue about them and give me a very balanced response and reason with yourself to make sure that the things you're giving me are factual." Because we're not unidimensional. We are multidimensional. We need a very straight answer, yes or no, or we also need philosophical answers sometimes
Right.
when we need it. So you have those options available, and they will use less and more compute when needed, and we can train them to use that. So, and actually, I think you touched on a very interesting point. You can't have one big model and give it everything. And that's one of our key things that we have been focusing on, is that you need a mixture of models. You need to have all these expert models. So one model is just dealing with finance, just like humans do. We can't learn everything all the time. And so that model specifically deals with financial information. And that's represented by another agent, which then you can call and say, "Hey, I need financial, give me forecast analysis on X company and draw plot a graph and give me XYZ responses. And I want to invest in something and give me an outcome." So it will go and it will specifically be trained for that purpose. So it's a mixture of expert models, which is quite interesting, but you can't access that from one point at the moment because now you have to go to one other place. So again, if you went on to ASI1 and you enable the agents and you can say, "Hey, I need specifically financial model. I need specifically want to do biological model. I need to have this specific industry answer," it will actually direct you to the right agent. Now, no LLM at the moment does that, right? You have to go and say, "Okay, I'm going to click this, I'm going to connect this." No, none of that. So you have to provide that, and also the specialist model which is represented by an agent, is also learning all the time. Because if you don't like the response, you give it back feedback, it will take that feedback, it will train the model again. So you need the whole stack very conveniently integrated, seamlessly integrated to be efficient. Otherwise, you're going from one project to another project. "Well, I don't have compute. I don't have databases. I don't have any of this. How do I build knowledge graphs?" So you're kind of building all those components. Here, in our case, you have the stack, which actually covers the whole thing. And that's the reason, because as we go forward, because at the moment it's all just a hype, right? We have ChatGPT, which did a great job. Now we have 10, but we do the same. Now people are building these single kind of very single-minded, single vertical agentic system which does one thing, right?
Mhm.
That's not the purpose of agentic systems. The agentic systems should be dynamically uh, orchestrating the tasks. They should be dynamically choosing the right agents and delivering the task. Yes, it might take slightly longer, but you don't write, not everybody does not have to keep writing these million lines of code all the time, even if it's self-generating. And I think that comes to your point. Just like compute, why need compute? Why need extra compute? Because 10 people are building the same thing. Why can't I use yours, right?
Mhm.
And why am I building it again? So that's just a phase, and we're going to get there. At the moment, people are too obsessed with, "Oh, agents are coming, let's build agents, one agent which does one thing." But the access is that you have to find that agent somehow. It's like having a website. How are you going to find it? How are you going to ask to do something? You need that entry point. And that's what Fetch is. So AI first search engine for agents.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess at this point in time, the progression of artificial intelligence, just speaking a general word for it all, where are we at in the process? Because the idea sounds like a whole economy, a whole social network of agentic systems is really on the emergence, as you mentioned. They also need to find themselves, find ways to connect, and so forth. So I guess my curiosity to you is like, what's really holding back? I almost see like two pillars going forward in in the world of intelligence, and that's human, and then there's artificial intelligence. So whenever we talk about humans advancing technology, we have limitations, we have energy, we have to go to bed, we have to feed ourselves, we have to find this information ourselves, and that those are kind of our kind of daily ceilings that we continue to hit up against, and our brains obviously learn the way that brains learn. So I guess like what is that ceiling right now for artificial intelligence, and is there a breakthrough coming where basically agentic systems don't have any ceiling. They don't have to go to bed. They have as much compute, they have as much data, and at what point like do really just not even quantum leaps, just like magnitudes of quantum leaps of research and understanding and new things, new worlds really start to open up based really solely through the world of AI. So kind of two questions there. What's kind of that ceiling that's really keeping AI at bay? And once and if that ceiling does just blow off, what like do you have any ideas of what the future could look like? Pretty much.
Well, I mean, if you look at what we're doing, I mean, with protein folding, you looked at AlphaFold.
Mhm.
People would spend 10 years doing things which the systems are now doing in
Yeah.
minutes or hours max, right? So you could see the ceiling is already starting to be broken down, right? So you are already going past what was a ceiling 10 years ago. So and why is it happening? No, it's not just compute, it's also the design of better algorithms. It's also design of better infrastructure, because how we bring in with the same compute, can you use, I mean, we saw DeepSeek doing something similar, which is you know cheaper GPUs, worse off GPUs, but better techniques, that gave them better results, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of evolution of techniques, because at the moment we just think, just throw it on compute, and just throw more compute, because we want to. There's a race happening, and we need to get there. But ultimately, when we come to a point where this becomes it doesn't, it's unsustainable, that's when we start looking at new techniques. That's okay, because that's how life goes. You start using what you have better and more efficiently. That's going to happen. So that's going to definitely change the game a little bit. But ultimately, I my this is my personal opinion, because of the acceleration of research that AI is bringing. Yeah, it's ultimately going to result in breakthroughs in physics, in technology itself. So, for example, if we can break the quantum conundrum, and we can actually bring quantum compute in the right way, your the current compute is nowhere to be comparable. It's going to blow it completely, and we're going to have something else. And I don't know what that something else is. I mean, people
Mhm.
have predictions. I think AI is going to become AGI and ASI, which is the artificial special intelligence. Which what that means is it's going to be way beyond our intelligence now.
Yeah.
When I hold judgment, reserve judgment, because I don't like to put dates on it. Other people might have suggested many things. Okay, I mean, it's possible. But I think we need a major breakthrough in in actual models designing of the algorithms, and we also need the biggest change is going to come from once we kind of hit quantum compute.
Yeah. That's what I think as well. In far less words, is really the idea that it's not impressive for the most part the way that the majority are using artificial intelligence these days. And I would say, the top 99% are using it, just getting basic questions and basically replacing your Google searches with prompts on artificial intelligence right now. But what I think will really start to turn heads is, as you're kind of alluding to, some of these models having really serious breakthroughs. And obviously, that involves the scientific process, research, and study, and kind of hindsight. But I just see a future where there are headlines, not just one, but multiple headlines. And all of a sudden, there's kind of a wave of, all right, our understanding as humans is expanding much faster because of these systems. And I think that will probably start to turn heads. And whether it's the early days of crypto adoption, which I think we're still in, or these coming early days of when artificial intelligence really starts to turn heads. I think, as always, there will always be a population of people who turn their heads and look and dive in. Some will turn their heads, run away as fast as they can, and stay grounded in what they're used to. And then I think that for me, the way I see crypto evolving is, people maybe looked at it once, as Bitcoin's price drove high in early or late 2017, and it's kind of come and gone. And I think we're nearing a breakthrough where a lot of people who first looked at cryptocurrency and kind of looked away as price went down, and all these changing opinions kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. I think we're due time for a big kind of second take at large from the entire market of cryptocurrency. Only this time, I think that alongside cryptocurrency will be the idea of these agentic systems, and how easy it will be to interact with them, and how abstracted the layer of cryptocurrency will be, abstracted away, because people are just interacting with artificial intelligence to find their information, to connect systems, to get the solution to the problem. And that's my next question, is along the idea of solving problems. And it had a little bit to do with my previous question about, these autonomous agents are overworking, giving us too much information that we never really needed in the first place.
I mean, crypto became a thing then, but it never actually. I mean, crypto is a problem which is looking, it's a solution looking for a problem, effectively.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Um, there is a definite solution for payments, right? That's for sure. There is a finance solution in crypto, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like saying I have Nasdaq, but I have no projects to list on it.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Because Nasdaq
yeah.
infrastructure exists. It's a financial infrastructure. It's resilient. It's built for trading of shares. So now let's look at an equivalent system, which is crypto in DeFi, right? I mean, we have BTC, store of value. It's gained that momentum, and it's there. So just let's park it. Ethereum came. It actually has utility. You can actually run software on the chain. So that's why it kind of built and built. And the biggest use case it had was ICOs. Right? What is ICOs? Really, it's a method of fundraising. So now comparison starts. So it started there. It's like having Nasdaq, because it's an exchange where you can actually build it, raise money. So you can issue your token, you can raise money around it, which is no different to having shares. Or in this case, it might be that utility. 90% of the projects don't have utility. That's for sure. So we saw that, because then it became and evolved into pump and dumps and meme economies and all of that. But that's not my point. Is not to comment on that effectively, but to do the comparison, having the comparison of an exchange with what DeFi and crypto. DeFi is the biggest use case of crypto has, right? Still, and everything else just comes and goes. But what that means is it's the trading. But if you start trading on a reputable exchange like New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq, if you are listing projects which do nothing, have no revenue, does not have a utility, ultimately it's not going to work. The biggest companies are not exchanges. The biggest companies in the world today are the companies which bring value. because they have cracked a problem with a solution that the world needs. So crypto has this problem, and I think AI and crypto, the blend is very, very useful because it solves a lot of AI's problems, and AI solves a lot of crypto's problems. But one of the biggest one is that it brings utility. Now, if I give you an example of Fetch, I mean, I can't comment on other projects, but if you look at Fetch, what we have is agents which are registered on chain, right? And when you transact with these agents, they transact in digital currency, right?
Hmm.
So if you bring banking into it, it becomes inefficient. On a decentralized chain, it works much more efficient. Registration is open to the world. So it's there. You pay for it in a decentralized ledger. You then interact with it, so everybody can see what the trust scores are. You're not hiding anything from anybody. Then you can actually access that. You can use LLM and pay for it using the micro payments, which is a nightmare in any other case. So it's kind of still building on that financial infrastructure, but it's building AI on top of it, which brings it the utility. I mean, if somebody says to me, "Oh well, I'm going to train the model on AI, I'm going to list the data on a decentralized marketplace," no company, nobody will do that because it becomes inefficient. It's nobody's going to risk their security. We can't say one side, "Oh, we care a lot about your security and privacy," and then say, "Oh, we'll make it public on chain." Not going to happen. So wrong idea. Um, but it brings you just beyond financial trading. It kind of starts building revenue. So it's like saying we have this exchange. Now we have a value created project which is now coming and actually creating value. And so there is some reason to trade this utility token. There is some reason because people are going to use the technology, which then leads me back into this whole the interactive strength deal that we talked about right in the beginning, which is these guys need the technology. And the only way they can have the technology is not by paying the company, it's by owning the tokens, right? Because it's a utility token, and we're proving to the world again as the first, because we were the first merger, we're the first IEO. We're proving again this is where we need to go, because if you want projects outside of crypto to come into crypto, you have to ask them, you have to tell them how to use your technology, and the underlying technological mode of economic value exchange is your token. So that's what this whole thing is about. And what this is enabling, AI is enabling, is that there is a way to do this on decentralized technology.
Wonderful. That was exactly it, was the idea of basically providing problems, or rather providing solutions to problems that people never really had. And I guess that's kind of at least touching on one more kind of topic along the idea of founders' stories, right? Because I think that everybody in Web3 is familiar with what went wrong with Web2. And it's like at some point in the evolution of humans, we started advancing, technology and communications, and it was beneficial, and it was things that were really solving problems. But then some people came along and saw, hey, we can provide this service that nobody's really asking for, but we can, obviously taking it to the nth, we can get them addicted to it and make a lot of money out of it. But I think some of them were a little bit more pure at the start than that. Like, hey, we can create services nobody ever asked for, but we can make money. And then, hey, now we can, take up their data and we can resell it and make even more money. So I really want to touch on a word that you use a lot of the time, talking about Fetch, talking about artificial intelligence. So please expand on commercialization, because I think that it's really important to give people an insight to your ethics, your beliefs, and to ensure that we all are on the same page. Are people, is Fetch just pursuing this road to make money, to capitalize, or is this commercialization? And even more importantly, is this so important, as I touched on in my very intro, overlooking some of these signal words could make or break the future of mankind? Is this also about, hey, we need to stay as close to the bleeding edge of this to make sure that this doesn't get into the wrong hands and it's not misused, and greed is not fed for the wrong reasons. And putting this into a agentic system has a lot of future implications that could take us to the world of Hollywood. But as we're closing up here, we've got maybe 5 minutes left before we have to say goodbye to you. So let's get right into it, finish strong, and we'll wish you on your way.
Well, you've asked a very extensive question, and I think then you've given me 5 minutes. Okay, so let's be focused at kind of what there is a lot of pieces of this question, but let me start from one thing.
Yeah.
Crypto is not well reputed at the moment. We need to change the reputation. It's full of when you talk about crypto, most people crypto is only 2% of the world, right? So not meant more than 2% of the world. They might know about it, but they don't use it. We have created a bad reputation of pump and dumps. We have created a bad reputation of criminal activity. We have created all the things that we were idealistic about. We've actually screwed them, really, but by doing things which are not good. Now, if somebody comes along and does something meaningful, when I say commercialization, I think that point I want to kind of deal with it separately. When you talk about people who want to do something meaningful and want some attention to crypto, true decentralized usage, that's commercialization of the technology. Because by saying the word, we are decentralized and giving nothing for the user to use, we are degrading the ethos of decentralization. We're saying, oh, well, all decentralization is good for is if you want to do criminal activity and move money around, or you want to do a pump and dump, get rich quick, or you have people issuing you death threats just because their token is not pumped enough. But nobody asks, hey, what did you guys build? I mean, what is the utility of this whole thing? How can I actually use it? That's the question. That's the commercialization question. And let me go back to Web 2 now. We had large language models for God knows how long. When OpenAI came along, it put it in people's hands. Commercialization does not happen without utility. Utility came first. People started using it, went to billions of people. They used it because they felt the need to use it. They found the utility in it. And then came the commercialization. So commercialization you can't do. So if we are going to make crypto great again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we need to do. We need to bring true utility to crypto. We need to show that crypto is not just this 2%. I want to go outside. I want to bring reputable, audited, NASDAQ, exchange listed companies who are building things and ask them to use it. We're not going to get big companies using it. We're not going. It's like one of the questions people ask is, well, it's a small company. Why would they buy it? Well, they're the ones who need it because these big central entities already have the resource to use it, right? You go to mega billion-dollar companies, they have their own compute centers. Why would they want to use a small technology in the decentralized space? But there are these companies who can't afford to buy IT people. They can't afford to buy AI engineers. What are they going to do? We should be, as a decentralized ethos, we should be providing them our services. But we can't provide them our services because we don't want to charge them in the fiat currency. We want to charge them in the utility token that we created.
Mm-hmm.
So the point of commercialization is no commercialization unless you provide utility. And utility comes not by saying the word decentralization, it's actually giving people what they want to use. So that's our ethos. We're starting from, can we give people what they want to use? Can we make it commercially viable and comparative to Web 2? And can we then commercialize it? Because nobody is going to win this race in decentralized space or become useful unless there is an economic value flow.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about economic value flow. We can't just keep minting tokens and giving it to people. That's not how it works. It's still an economy. Hopefully that covered most of it.
I think that was as much as we could have done with the time that we've got. And clearly, with the merger between Ocean Protocol, SingularityNET, and Fetch, obviously there are a lot of great minds that are joining arms, linking up, and working towards running towards the finish line together. So, with that being said, I want to give one last opportunity for you, Humayun, to either speak to the community through this merger or really just kind of give a call to action of people who are watching this video. How can we kind of get involved? Speak to developers or speak to your everyday person. But yeah, just as we close here, what are your final words to people watching this video?
Well, eh, for my crypto community, I think they need to get out of this mindset of get rich quick and actually start looking for utility. If you want the right projects to put your mind behind and put your you know your loyalty behind it, look for projects which are actually delivering, product value, the utility that people are looking, and they are innovative enough to try various things and new things. And I think that's what's going to change this game. Ultimately, that's what's going to bring value. And I mean, really, what I'm inviting our communities to do is to come and try our products. We have a product. We're not just talking about it, which most projects do. Go and try a product, and this is a product which you have in Web2 space, which is a chat-based system. But go and see the differences, and then give it marks out of 10, right? So that's really where I want to leave it. That decentralized decentralized ledger technology, decentralization, crypto is not going to become great unless we bring to true utility, and we bring some maturity to actually make this space uh, where it has some good reputation, not just a pump and dump reputation. So I urge people to kind of start thinking that way.
Awesome. Yeah, that is as well my call to action. I spent some time toying around with ASI1 and am looking forward to diving more into see what really differentiates it from other large language learning models out there. And I encourage everybody to check out the description. We'll have links to get connected with everybody, including Humayun here. So without further ado, or rather I should say, that's all we have to say. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and just sharing your advice, your wisdom, and your perspective, and hopefully just encouraging and inspiring people. My hat's off to you, Humayun. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you very much. Well, hopefully maybe we'll meet someday, but wishing you all the luck, and we'll see all our viewers at the next episode, and I hope to connect again someday, Humayun.
Indeed.
Alrighty.
Looking forward to it.